Hey nerds, we are going to do a breakdown and review of Star Wars The Acolyte, Episode 5, starting now. Welcome to the Nerd Social. I am Colin.
I am David.
And I'm Nathan.
So, we are now more than halfway through Star Wars The Acolyte. This is now Episode 5. The title of the episode is called Night, actually, which is very interesting because Episode 4 was Day. And the spoiler-free logline for this episode is that in a dense jungle, the Jedi are put to the test when they confront a rising darkness. David, what are your thoughts of this latest episode of The Acolyte?
This is the best episode so far for this series, so I'm really enjoyed it. And now we finally see some lightsaber action, and we finally get more revelations, and also we learn more about the characters. I enjoyed it.
Nathan, what do you think? This is your first time with us doing a review of Acolyte. What are your thoughts?
I think it is probably one of the best live action Star Wars TV episodes that we've gotten since they started doing episodes with The Mandalorian. It is just what you want when you start watching an action adventure show, when this is supposed to be an action adventure show, because it is set at night. It also has some horror elements as well they put in there, which if you watch the previous episode, when the Sith Lord or whatever descended from above like a xenomorph, very creepy. That was the beginning of the horror episode last week, and then they just extended it here. So yeah, it was a good episode.
Mm-hmm. For me, I am a little ambivalent about the whole episode because I just see it from the whole standpoint of Star Wars Disney Plus shows, and it's always very frustrating to me that they get to the fifth episode when everything goes to crap. Everything changes. There's a lot of big reveals. There's a lot of action. Because I look back in the old Mandalorian season 2, the Jedi was my favorite episode. Was the debut of Ahsoka, and that was episode 5. And so every single one of those shows have their moments in episode 5. And I'm just wondering, why does it take so long for this to happen? Because I just feel that they could have done this much earlier. I know that Carrie-Anne Moss appeared in episode 1. It was a very good action scene, but they, spoiler, killed her off. And I just find it not as compelling. And why does it have to take so long for it to become compelling? So I think that's part of my frustration with it. But overall, the episode itself was very good. I really liked, like you said, Nathan, the horror elements of it. They're trying something new. It's great. They're trying that dichotomy between May and Osha, which I really like. And also, you don't know whether or not Soul is all there. And he is a flawed individual. And they really show that in this episode. I think because of that, the novelty of it, the characters in conflict, it really does lend itself to having a very solid episode overall.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying about the series overall. There are a couple things I would say. I wouldn't have cared about some of the extreme things that happened this episode without a little bit of understanding who these characters are. It just would have been a bunch of fun fights, but you actually care about the peril because they took a little bit of time showing you who they were. I will say that a lot of the shows, the streaming services, have varying issues with trying to break a season. This is something that network television and prestige players like HBO figured out a long time ago. Netflix seasons are too long. Even though you get them all at the same time, it's too many episodes, and that's been something that some people have complained about for a while. I think the issue with a lot of the Disney Plus shows is that they're not doing something wrong in general for storytelling, because I think they're just doing a 3-act structure, and I think we're going into the 3rd act, but you can't write this like a movie because you're dropping it week to week. So you have to have some sort of hook in every episode to get people to come back the next week. And this is something that network television figured out years ago when they had to not only get people to come back the next week, but also get people to come back after the commercial break. So that they actually have hooks after every commercial break, so you don't just move away. Now, that structure can be a hindrance to creativity, but also you'll hear a lot of artists say that structure can be freeing as well, because if you have a structure, it helps you figure certain things out. So I think that they're a little bit too free. Maybe they should self-impose some structure even though they don't have commercial breaks, even though they're shooting it all at the same time, unlike regular television where they start the season and they're shooting throughout the season, even though they get all the money all at the same time. Maybe they should just impose some internal structure to keep the pacing where it should be for people to actually come back the next week. There's also some bad faith stuff going on around this show as well, but
Yes, of
like
course.
people weren't giving it a chance. They review bombed it before it even started. But putting that aside, actually looking at the show objectively, yeah, it has
Yep.
pacing issues because all of their shows have pacing issues because they're structuring them like movies. Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree with that, and we can definitely talk about that aspect of it being a problem and not giving it a fair shake. Me and David have addressed that a lot in the first couple of episodes, and some of the criticism is fair, but I think that sometimes the people on the internet get too extreme about it, and we've said it many times with Marvel. It's that if you don't like it, you don't have to watch it, and it will reflect on the ratings, and at the same time they're going to have to pivot because they are a money making machine at the end of the day. So if their product is not going to be, unfortunately, not that good and representation goes by the wayside, then that's the unfortunate part of sacrificing it.
Yeah, we're on YouTube. I think part of the problem is there will always be racists, and they were racist back in the 60s. I'm sure that would right into the television studios because of that. It's just that now you can make money off of it, so they're whipping up people and they're just creating a bunch of content, regardless of what the actual product is, because they pay their bills off of the negativity. So their algorithm rewards them for it, and so the conversation gets toxic and drowned out, and you can't have an honest conversation about anything. There are definitely some cringy diversity shows that like forced diversity things that I've seen over the last couple of years, but like this show is just diverse and they just have a story. The cast is diverse,
Right.
and they know that the people who are making money off of controversy, that's enough for them to start crapping on the things.
Exactly. Thank you for expanding upon that, Nathan. What would you give a rating for this particular episode?
So I would give it a 9. I think I told you guys that I watched it 4 times already. So I've already done a movie marathon. It's like part of the reason we started this channel is for me anyway, is to kind of talk about things like this that I'm excited about. When I watch something and I'm really excited about it and I want to talk about it, I would go online and find other people talking about it. So it's nice to be able to talk about things that I'm excited about. So yeah, this episode was cool, and I'm looking forward to dig into it. It wasn't perfect. There's some issues that I have at the end of the episode, but besides that, it was really cool.
David, what would you give the rating for episode 5?
After careful consideration, I'd say I give it a 9, actually.
Oh.
Than I previously thought, because like Nathan, I watched it 2 to 3 times because I like the action and like the direction it goes in this episode because it gets straight to the point. It doesn't drag on, and the action scene brings back the whole Star Wars fighting lore with the Jedi versus Sith, unlike the Force Awakens trilogy. So I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, I would actually just give it an 8 road trip. I think that for me, I love the action. That actually boosted it up. Like I said in my part of the review, the frustrations is more toward the overall 5 episode arc, and it was going from 7 to 8, and then there were some good things to it, but then there's some things that I'm like, oh, why did it have to take so long to get to this point? And I get what you're saying, Nathan, is that you have to somehow balance the character development with the action, and also the pacing's off. That is why for me it's still above average. And I talked to my brother about it. My brother's much more of a traditional Star Wars fan, and he's meh. He's really into the diversity, he's really into representation, but at the same time he doesn't feel the same about it as he does with the traditional Star Wars.
When you're saying he said meh, you saying meh to this episode or to the show so far?
To the show so far.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
average. It's okay. But nothing like compelling.
I think I would mostly agree with him on that. As this episode, like I said, I'm trying to be as objective as possible about this episode specifically. But like, this is the first time I've talked about the show. It's mostly fine. In general, this episode brings it up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can maintain this, and I read an Entertainment Weekly article that they had loaded because they knew there's a lot of people were going to talk about this episode. The showrunner, what she said in that article is correct, focused on keeping it this high, like having cool revelations, because she says that other showrunners leave some stuff on the table with the expectation that they might get another season, but she went into thinking that she might not get another season, so she's gonna go all out. So if they can keep it at this level. And it doesn't even have to have this much action, because I know people have to talk to each other. But if they can keep it at this interesting over the next 3 weeks, yeah, this probably be one of the best, if not the best, Star Wars show. Beating Andor is a little difficult because the dialogue and the layers, but it definitely has a possibility of being the number 2. So.
Okay. Well, that's our kind of non-spoilery thoughts about it. So any other things before we get into spoiler territory?
Let's dive in.
All right. So if you like what we have to say about The Acolyte or any other content that we put out, please share, subscribe for more of it. We really appreciate all your support, and we are trying to grow as much as we can. Spoilers ahead. Let's get to the screenshot. So we start off with the end of episode 4, where our mystery Sith figure was pushing away all the Jedi, and it stopped right there. And David, you mentioned last week as, why couldn't they continue that? It left it onto us. And yeah, he's a very scary character overall. How do you think that they approached this, David, with our mysterious Sith figure at the beginning of this episode?
That's the thing with the Sith, though. They came out of nowhere. And I feel like in this forest scene, he's the predator, except he doesn't make that clicking noise in his mouth. Because he cannot be seen. He attacks out of nowhere, and then scared the crap out of people, which is just what happened last episode. I like how they did this approach. It brought an old school feel, how they brought Darth Vader, Darth Maul into the mix.
Nathan, what were your thoughts about his appearance here?
Yeah, you're talking about the end of the last episode or the beginning of this?
Yeah, just both at the end of the last episode and the beginning here.
Yeah, I talked about this earlier, about him descending like a xenomorph. It was creepy as heck, and his ability to keep them off balance and throw them all was pretty cool at the end of the last episode. And it seems like he's also dodging and moving so that like they all can't hit him at the same time, and also that he has the element of the helmet in the gauntlet, which is shorting out their lightsabers. So yeah, he's just playing dirty, like a Sith is supposed to. But I don't think he's the master. He's obviously the apprentice looking for a pupil that will help him kill his master. I think that's who he is. Otherwise, he'd be using some lightning. But he's still playing dirty. So, which is what you want for your from your Sith.
And we see here also the first part of Soul encountering this mysterious figure, and we didn't know at the end of the episode whether or not Soul survived or not, but he actually did survive, and he's just shell-shocked in a lot of ways here.
Yeah, I think at least one of the Jedi, the one that Osha comes across when she wakes up, I assume he got his neck broken just from the Force push. Right. So yeah, Soul could have easily gotten hurt by the Force push too. Yeah, we don't see him for a little bit, and then we see him a little bit later after he dispatches with a bunch of red shirts. And that's not even my terminology. That's the terminology that the showrunner used in the Entertainment Week article. Because apparently she watches Star Trek too. So she's we have a bunch of red shirts, but there are people that have consequences beyond the red shirts. So
and one of the red shirts that you talked about is actually Jackie here. Which
she's not really a red shirt because she's someone that you know.
Maybe more Sasha Yar.
Yeah, she's more like Sasha Yar. She's someone that you know. More red shirts are meant to show the stakes without actually killing any of the main cast, but they killed some of the main cast in this one.
Yeah, she got really messed up at the very end there. But to her credit, she was able to unmask our dark figure here.
The stranger. In the subtitles, they have him as a stranger because it's obviously he was lying about who he was to May in the previous episodes. So they just renamed him the Stranger in the subtitles.
Interesting. David, you want to say anything about Jackie, her last appearance here?
I'd say I'm impressed of how her battle style and how she fights. Especially, she had one lightsaber that was broken, and then she happened to have a backup lightsaber. Whereas I was like, "Holy shoot, that's badass right there!" Because we never seen that before. That Jedi's have a backup lightsaber.
Well, it wasn't a backup. So one, we have seen it because Ahsoka has a backup lightsaber, but she was using the lightsaber that Wookiee Konaka's lightsaber. Before this scene, because we didn't talk about that, she apprehended May, and that scene was cool because they intercut that scene with Soul and the Stranger fighting. So it was interesting to see two master-ish level people fighting and two pupils fighting, because the pupil fight was far more knockdown, drag out, and far less technique, and they were just like rolling around on the floor with each other and more passionate. with more juxtaposed when they were intercutting it with the masters like going blow to blow with forms, and that was interesting. But yeah, she has a lot of passion. Even when she was confronting him, when she had the two lightsabers, and after she apprehended May, she was all over the place. and that works depending on the day of the week and if you get a lucky shot in. So he did have to recoil back when he noticed that she had another lightsaber, but you can compare her work with the two lightsabers to Ahsoka's work with two lightsabers. Ahsoka's far more in control, has forms for the two lightsabers, where she was just like hacking away passionately. Right. And it, like I said, it caught him off guard, and he was actually focused on beating her after catching himself. Probably could have beat her, but he wasn't really focused on beating her. He was focused on getting May. So he finished the fight by destroying Kilnaka's lightsaber and then went after May.
And then after the Masters removed, we find out that it was Khmer all this time. David, you get the gold star for being correct on this. Definitely. I thought that was the case too, but what are your thoughts about the reveal here?
We get to see what we learned about the Sith. All are very sneaky. They can somehow be able to hide their ability to connect to the Force, and also they hide in plain sight. The Sith and the Jedi are like two magnets. You can't really connect, and you can't really feel what's going on. And you get a feeling, but you don't know where it is or where the source is. In this case here, it's just that he gave a lot of hints that he is, as Nathan pointed out, he may not be the master, but he's a skilled fighter. Mm-hmm. But now we get to see more about who he is, though, because we thought he's just a clumsy galactic traitor, but he's actually a Sith. Mm-hmm. So even he had this conversation with Soul when Soul asked, "What are you?" And she said, "Sith." And then Soul suspected the Sith are around, but then there's no confirmation. And he asked, "Why risk yourself to be found?" And then Khmer says, "I wear a mask, right?"
That made me chuckle. Because he dropped the fool act, but he still has like a sense of humor while being evil. That made me chuckle when he said that.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, basically a Soul gets it straight to the point, saying, "What the hell do you want?" And Khmer just flat out say, "I want to be free. We do what we want with the Force." In other words, you leave us alone and let us do what we want. Mm-hmm. And then he has a deal. Mm-hmm. Give me an apprentice. Mm-hmm. And he has his eye on Osha now, because he lost interest in May. I see that Soul got angry, and not to mention worried for both Osha and May. All he could think about is get them out of the way and get them to safety. Mm-hmm. And then that's when, at this scene here, Yor just came out of nowhere and fought him off. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, he got killed to a pulp, literally snapped his neck, literally in seconds after a fight.
Yeah, that was intense. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Yord figured out what the helmet was doing, so he did incapacitate him. He knocked out his lightsaber, but he miscalculated on how good of a hand-to-hand combatant he is after both of Soul's and the Stranger's lightsabers are out, and they just go hand-to-hand. The difference between that fight and when May and Jackie were fighting, when they were just rolling around on the ground, and the precision of that fight, there was no way, unless Yord was practicing without his lightsaber, and apparently he was not. He wasn't practicing without his lightsaber, which is why he's a Jedi Knight and he wasn't a master. Mm-hmm. But yeah, as soon as he got hands on him, he snapped his neck. I don't know which one was worse, like him poking a triangle in Jackie or him snapping Yord's neck. I think it's maybe Yord, because after Jackie dies, you're like, okay, no one else is going to die. That's the one shocking death. They're not going to do another one. They did another one.
And you can definitely see what you talk about here, the rage that Soul has. And there's some speculation online on whether or not Soul is evil.
I don't know that he's evil, but I do think that what the Stranger says here about what you've done with your darkness, I've accepted my darkness. Many Jedis have a dark side that they have to contend with. And in the novels and in comic books, there are some Jedis, I think they're called Wayseekers, who are less necessarily dark or light. They try to follow the Force, so they contend with their dark side. So I don't know. Mm-hmm. For the canon to work, he either has to die, turn to the dark side, or become like a Wayseeker and just leave the Jedi Order, because they don't know about the Sith, and they aren't going to know about the Sith for another 100 years. And right now, the only people alive, to the point of the Stranger, because he has to kill anyone who finds out about him, only one alive is Soul, May, and Osha now, that know about him.
Yeah. David, what do you think about Soul's journey here? Do you think he is evil or not?
I agree with Nathan about it. This is another nod of how all Jedi have to deal with. For example, Luke Skywalker, he has to face his father. Obi-Wan, he has to face Darth Maul, and then Anakin has to face his own demons. And Saul, we get to know Saul. This is what I like about the show, is that Saul is a brand new character, and yet they didn't leave off a lot of things. We get to know more about his character because, as we know so far, Saul had a lot of guilt. And I remember Yoda in episode 1 talking to Anakin when he was a kid, saying that fear is the path to the dark side. Fear led to anger. Anger led to hate. Hate leads to suffering. That is what Saul is going through right now because he's suffering from his guilt. He's facing his past. It's repeating what happened because now he has to save either one twin or both twins. And now he was given a chance, and now he's powerless. He can't do anything. So like that's my take on it.
You also saw him do some dishonorable things, like Osha had to stop him from killing an unarmed person. Stranger pokes at him for attacking him when his back was turned. It's like, that's not very Jedi of you. So he's struggling with himself, what he was taught to do as a Jedi, and his emotions because all these people have died around him. Because he's human, right? And there's what you're taught, and I think that might even be separate from his guilt. Like even if he didn't have the guilt, dropping into a place with 8 different Jedi and all of them except for you died might give you some emotional turmoil unless you're like master to the level of Yoda, who's been alive for like hundreds of years and who's seen people come and go and adjusted to death. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's a human with a regular lifespan, and first he saw a child die, and then he was the last Jedi standing. So yeah, he went off on him, and he was about to kill him until Osha stops.
We'll talk about Osha in the next slide, but May actually, at the end of the episode, takes Osha's clothes and basically impersonates her and goes with Soul onto the ship, and that's how the episode ended. May, where's her mind right now? Of all the things that's happened.
She seems very mercurial to me. Sorry,
Mercurial? Go ahead.
Yeah, if you think back at the conversation where May and Osha confront each other, May literally tricked Osha and knocked her out because May still blamed the Jedi for her suffering, the killing of her family, and believed that they brainwashed Osha to become a Jedi. So it's really not true at all. Colin, like we talk about the saying that you thought that the Jedi maybe caused the fire, which confirmed it's not. And even Osha says that you're the violent one. And what I guess is that May impersonating Osha, I think she is trying to do like a Trojan horse kind of thing. Get into the Jedi and destroy from within. Because she thinks that if she somehow killed 2 of the Jedi targets, and she thinks that all Jedi will be the same, and then they can do it very easily, which I don't think so. What my guess is, the next episode is that May will finally see that Soul is not exactly what she thought the whole time. Mm-hmm. Because of Osha. She's the last family of her family she has left. That she doesn't want to lose it. And she would do anything to get the way she wants. But she's still not thinking about what Osha wants. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. And it's gonna kick her in the ass when Kamir found Osha and took her, and I think they took her in. So I'm thinking, oh, why do I feel it's going to be reversed right now?
Nathan, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that she's mercurial. I think there's just elements of her personality there, a little bit pathologizing a fictional character like bipolar. She was always volatile. She was volatile when she was a child. Her back and forth and her turning on a dime is what we saw in the flashback in episode, I think it was 3. So there's an element of that to her decision making, but I also think that at this point, when she's been going back and forth, she said in the previous episode that it changes everything that Osha is alive, and then Osha rejects her in this episode, and that was one of the things that I said that was a little bit of a letdown. I think Amanda Stenberg can act actually pretty well. I think that either she got some poor direction, she had a poor scene partner when she was actually doing this scene. Like, if I'm comparing it to the High Watermark, and I don't even really think this movie was great. I think it was okay. The Flash movie, when you saw Ezra.
Oh my God! Don't get me started.
Ezra Miller, like 2 Ezra Millers, yeah,
playing against themselves. That was far more believable, and they had to do that over a course of an entire movie than this one scene. And I like I said, I don't know if the director didn't give good direction, or when she has to do both sides, she has to play against someone who's just reading off the lines. And if the person who was doing it, playing her part, wasn't giving her enough in the scene to actually respond to, maybe she didn't respond to it properly because her scene partner, or maybe she didn't even have that. Maybe it was just a stand-in and someone like a producer who was reading lines, so she had nothing to act off of. But the acting in that scene wasn't great. It's funny, like I said, she can act, because when she's acting as May or when she's acting as Osha, it's fine. It's just that when she was trying to act against herself, when she had to switch back and forth, and that great. But anyway, that aside, May was rejected. I think her mission now is to prove to Osha that the Jedi are wrong or bad. So she's trying to get some intel on Soul, and then she's going to bring that back to Osha. I think that's what her plan is now. Because I don't think she's foolish enough to think that killing Soul is going to get her back in the good graces of the stranger. When he sees her again, he's going to try to kill her. So she's just trying to get Osha back. So. And
speaking of Osha, do you think that the stranger is going to try to turn Osha into a Sith? Is this going to be the new Acolyte or not?
I think he's definitely going to try. He wants a pupil, right? And I think he wants a pupil to try to take down his master. And who knows who the master might be? Plagueis. He wants to take down his master. Who knows how many apprentices Plagueis had before he had Palpatine, and Palpatine killed him. I mean, Palpatine, we know from the prequel trilogy, had at least 3 apprentices, right? He had Dooku, he had Maul, and then he had Anakin. So Plagueis might have had other apprentices before Palpatine, and this guy might have been one of his apprentices, and he had to kill him because he was trying to find a pupil to kill Plagueis. So maybe Plagueis had to kill him because he's basically doing what he's doing here. But yeah, I think he's going to try to recruit her. They obviously have differing ideas of what happened that night, and I think we're going to find out in episode 7, because it'll probably be another flashback.
In 6.
I don't think it's going to be in 6. I think it's going to be in 7.
Oh, okay.
In episode 7, what happened that night, I think they're going to do the flashback in episode 7. And that's just me from the article I read. Because the director who directed episode 3 also directs episode 7. So I think we'll find out in episode 7 what actually happened that night. And the showrunner also mentioned Rashomon as an inspiration for this show. So we're going to see from their different perspective. Episode 3, we got Osha's perspective and a little bit of Soul's perspective, and we'll actually see from another perspective in episode 7. So we'll see.
David, what do you think about Osha in this episode and where her journey is going to end up?
Right now she's in the crossroads because we still don't know why she left the Order. She was very closely similar to Ahsoka when she left the Order, but the circumstance is different. We don't know why she left the Order yet, still. I still want to know why she left the Order, and as Nathan said, maybe the next 2 episodes will show a flashback, will tell the reason why. But right now Osha is confused because she doesn't know what to do or what to believe, because she doesn't want to believe in May, even though despite that she is her only relative, she still blamed her for what she'd done back in the past.
She thinks she's done. Yeah.
For Soul, we got hints that there's something he's hiding from her, but from the dialogue that I've been noticing, that he feels like he wants to tell her something, but he hasn't had a chance yet. Even though he brought her to the mission to capture May, he said, once we get her, I'll tell you everything. So I'm thinking, okay, that means we will find out what really happened that night. Now he has more of his guilt because his new apprentice just died. And we don't know how he's going to deal with it. That's why I'm like surprised. Didn't you notice that your apprentice got switched? And even at the scene at the end, that rabbit-looking Padawan noticed that's not Osha. Even Pip can tell it's the droid tool. Pip didn't say anything either. Otherwise, he would react and say, "That you're not Osha." So maybe that will show up in the next episode when saw the hints as saying that May is not Osha. Osha is actually May. But I'm as curious as you guys are where we gotta go from here. And also we can confirm is it's very likely that, as Nathan pointed out, it is Plagueis is the master. We won't see him. I read the books too in the past about Palpatine's time as the apprentice. I've seen drawings of what he could look like, but we'll see what happens though.
So, any other thoughts before we wrap up on episode 5 here?
Just looking forward to whether or not they can maintain this quality for the next 3 episodes. Looking forward to to seeing if next week is not a flashback and the flashback is in episode 7, because like I said, the director is the same. See what information Soul communicates to May thinking it Osha, and what information the stranger communicates to Osha to try to get her on his side.
Okay. That's what we thought about Star Wars The Acolyte Episode 5. So want to hear from what you have to say about the episode. Please comment down below. Share and subscribe for more content like this. And we will see you in the next video. All right. Have a good one, everybody.